Poverty, hunger, education, access to clean water and sanitation. We all know the biggest issues facing our world today. And like many of you sitting out there today, I want to help make a difference. Don't we want to live in a world where people no longer have to sleep on the street in the middle of a freezing cold winter, and where children around the world are no longer starving? Well, I've got the next 17 minutes or so to talk to you guys about how we can help to build this better future, how I'm working on sustainable solutions to help women in rural Africa, and how you guys can be a part of creating innovative solutions to some of the world's greatest problems. Now, one of the ways to help out is through charity. And I've had the pleasure of working with many amazing people who have dedicated their lives in the service of others. And this has led me to not only meet some phenomenal people, but I've also got to work with some remarkable charities. But the current models that many charities work on are flawed. And we need new models for social change. And this is because there's a darker side to charity that most people don't see. One where many charities are going out of business, or barely keeping their heads above water, or creating massive power imbalances that lead to some pretty horrific things. Imagine going up to a group of veterans and telling them that the work experience that they need can no longer continue because you didn't fundraise enough that month. Or going up to a group of disabled kids and telling them that the weekly sessions you run that give them some semblance of normality in their lives can no longer continue because you didn't get a government grant that you needed. You know, many of us give to charity, but what happens when hard times hit and people can no longer give? Well, it's the people who really need help that miss out. And these are all real conversations that people have had to have. And it showed me that if we want to make any kind of meaningful and real change in the world, we have to do it in a way that's sustainable, both environmentally, socially, and most importantly, financially. Now, this idea is not new and it's not novel. Around 3 years ago, world leaders came together and the United Nations created the Sustainable Development Goals, with a number of targets spread across 17 aspirational global goals. And this was all done in order to, and I quote, shift the world onto a path of inclusive, sustainable, and resilient development. Now, when I first found out about this, I knew it was something I wanted to be a part of. And I'd honestly thought that by using this model of sustainability, we'd found the way to make a real difference in the world, and we found the right models of social change. But the truth is, this was up until I met one guy from Malawi, who came up to me and he said, "Kyan, the projects you're running are amazing. But the issue with people in third world countries," because I essentially told him that the philosophy we work on is that if you give someone a fish, then you feed them for a day. But if you teach someone to fish, then you feed them for a lifetime. But he came up to me and he said, "The projects are incredible, but you've got to change the narrative. The issue with people in third world countries isn't that they don't know how to fish, because they do. The issue is that they don't have the resources, the infrastructure, or even the basic tools to be able to fish for themselves." And this really opened my eyes to the fact that if we want to make meaningful change, we have to go one step further. We have to put change into the hands of the people who really need it, by giving them the tools and the training to be able to improve their own lives. And here's an example of how we do it. I want you all to join me on a journey out to meet a community in Rwanda that our team has been working with over the last few years. Now, to better understand the community, I first want to introduce you to Console. She is an incredible woman and lives in a cooperative in Rwanda called Dufatanye. She is the sole provider and carer for her 4 daughters and is a single mum because her husband and all of her sons were killed during the Rwandan genocide. She works hard every single day to provide food and everything for her daughters. But her struggle is made worse by the fact that she doesn't have access to affordable menstrual care. This means that whilst Console is on her period, or week of shame, as it's sometimes referred to out there, she doesn't go to work. Her daughters don't really have access to her, and while her daughters are on their periods, they don't go to school. This means that it's harder for Console to provide for her family, and that her daughters eventually end up dropping out of school. Now, you might be thinking, well, why don't they just buy some sanitary pads or some tampons or something? But the problem is that the currently available imported pads that they have access to cost as much as an average farmer's daily wage. Now, if we really think about that for a second, here in the UK, that would be like spending £105 per packet of sanitary pads, or $150 US. And what this means that the only option that Console and her daughters have is to use unhygienic rags and cloths that lead to infections and a loss of health. But what's worse is the fact that it's not just Console that has these issues. Her story is similar to millions of women around the world. And when our team went out there, we found that 75% of women and girls would miss school and work whilst on their periods. And this means that over the course of their lifetime, they're losing out on 5 years of their lives. Now, her community was also donated 3,000 banana trees in an effort to help them. And this was an incredible idea and an incredible step because it meant that they could use the bananas to make food and even banana whiskey. But the problem with banana trees is that they only grow fruit once in their lifetime. This means that if you want more bananas, you have to grow new banana trees. And the stems of these banana trees are thought to be useless. And so every single year, they have 3,000 banana trees. They get cut down and thrown on the side of the road, left to rot. But our team found that these banana trees and these banana stems were not useless. We found that they could be used to make the sanitary pads that these women so desperately needed. And so here's a video of one of our student engineers out in Rwanda teaching some of the women one of the steps in that process.
First, they strip the core of the tree into stringy fibres.
Once we've got to there, we just dry them out in the sun.
Then they mix paper and water to make a paste. The paper means the final product will be white and more attractive. The fibres are added so that it can eventually go rigid. It's then cooked to make it pure and dried in the sun. The result? A highly absorbent pad that can be used in nappies and sanitary towels.
We thought that Console's story was too important to ignore. And so we came back to the UK and have worked with lecturers, one of which is Dr. Grigg, who's sitting in this room today, as well as business executives and our university, in order to develop this process further and and find a way to turn these banana trees into sanitary pads that will be 100% biodegradable. We currently have 2 machines in their final stages of development in order to both make and sterilize the pads. And we'll be going out to Rwanda in summer of this year and working with Console and Terafine, another lady in the community whose story is very similar to Console's. And we'll be working with them to help empower them to provide access to accessible and affordable sanitary pads at a fraction of the current price. Here's what Terafine had to say about our project.
Since all ladies have a menstrual cycle, this will really help us. Instead of spending the money in the shop where we've been buying them, we are going to make them and teach our daughters too. The cost will be cut. We could even make plenty of them and begin a business.
And what's more is that it's not just this cooperative that we can help. We've already had interest about our project from other areas in Rwanda, as well as places like Uganda and Kenya and even Ghana. And now this, whilst I've told you about one of the projects that I've been involved with over the last few years, there are actually millions of people around the world working on innovative solutions to some of the world's most prevalent issues by working in groups, as individuals, or through programs. And what I've found is that if we want to make a difference in the world, then we need the right people, the right resources or resourcefulness, and a lot of hard work. Because if we can take experience and expertise and infuse that with energy, creativity, and passion, and when we start to utilize the right resources, we can create new models of social change and come up with new ideas. And what better place to find those ingredients than at university? We have access to future leaders in every area, ranging all the way from engineering through to archaeology. And we all know how motivated students can be when it comes to social change. We also have access to academics and entrepreneurs whose knowledge far exceeds that somebody could hope to achieve at university level. And this has allowed us to make the multidisciplinary teams that we need to pull projects like this off. And through our work with lecturers, we can now make research outputs that have a significant grounding in reality and that can really make a difference in the world. And finally, we have access to businesses and institutions whose reach extends to a global level. You know, businesses have these things called CSR days, or corporate social responsibility days, which I think is an amazing idea and a great step in the right direction. They'll essentially go out into a community and help build a school, or send people out to go and volunteer, which is incredible. But I think that we can take this one step further. What if, instead of building a school, we use the experience that these executives have spent years cultivating and go out there and run projects that allow communities to build their own schools? And so, although it might seem impossible, I want to urge you all to challenge the way the world works, to disrupt current systems, and to go out there and help create innovative solutions to some of the world's biggest problems. Because I honestly believe that if we can see opportunity where others see challenge, if we can fear not trying instead of failure, and if we can focus on what can be and what must be, instead of merely dwelling on what is, then we can find stories powerful enough to unite the greatest minds in institutional education, academia, and business. And we can come up with new ideas and new models of social change that give dignity back to people like Console and Terafine, and allow them to improve their own lives. And so, what can you guys do, and how can you help? Well, first, you have to believe that you can make a difference. I'm sure that there are many of you sat out there today thinking, but I'm just a child, I'm just a student, I'm just another cog in the big wheel of business, or that it's too scary, or it's too difficult, or that it's just another impossible childhood fantasy. Well, I'm here to tell you today that it may be scary, and it may be difficult, but it's also too important to avoid doing what is possible. And so, because whilst I've told you about an incredible project, I'm personally nothing special. I'm just a 21-year-old student that has got to meet some incredible people through this project. But I did find that something amazing happened when I started to tell people about Console's story. I found that the boundaries between students, lecturers, professors, executives, and directors broke down. And instead of being individuals, we became a group of people working together in solidarity to try and make a difference in the world. And so if you are someone who has experience and expertise in an area, whether it be a field of business, as someone who's worked with vulnerable people, or as an engineer, then you can go out there and help run projects. You can create and share ideas, and you can reach out to see what there is that you can do to help to the people who are already running projects. If you are someone who owns a business, then you can go out there and maintain an open forum and a platform to be able to share what resources you can with those who really need it. And if you are someone who cares enough to make a difference, then you're the most important part. Because you can find the skills and resources that you need. And you can go out there and inspire, energize, and unite the people that you need to help move humanity forwards. And so, although I can't tell you exactly what to do, all it really takes to change the world is first the belief that we can. A story powerful enough to unite us. An idea that can make a difference. And the hard work and resources to make it a reality. And so my question to you is this. If we can do that, then why don't we? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Awesome. All I can say is I think that women, mothers in third world countries are probably some of the most hardworking people. So no wonder they've inspired you to take up such an ambitious project. Again, I just want to thank you for spreading your idea on the stage today. Everybody, please, a round of applause.
Thank you.
Actually, I've got a question.
Okay.
So what is one simple step that all of us as a community can take to make our society more sustainable?
I think it's just making it sustainable before we start. I think it's a case of when we're going out there and when we're trying to do new things, it's starting off by thinking about sustainability, not thinking about, oh, what can I do to take this one step, but thinking about how can I help an entire community? How can I help people? So for example, with Consulate, we could very easily go out there, fundraise some money and just give them some sanitary pads. But it means that their daughters and their daughters' daughters and everyone for years to come won't have that same privilege. And so I really think about when we're going into sustainability, it's a case of thinking about it when we start, not going into it and realizing, oh no, everything's not working because we don't have enough of this left over. But it's starting off by thinking about how can we make it sustainable.
Brilliant. Well, we'll leave it at that. Again, everybody, please, round of
Thank you.
applause for Kyan. Thank you.